Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining in this very interesting and unique session today we have on predictive lead conversion. Sanjay and Sunita, who will be our presenter today from Asymmetric, which is our partner, and they're based in Mumbai. So welcome Sanjay and welcome Sunita on this session. Really appreciate you guys coming up on our platform and sharing your insights with our audience. So thank you for joining in.
Thank you, Nilesh.
Thanks, Nilesh. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, a couple of questions I have for you before we kind of start the session. So I'll start with Sunita because I really want I look at some of the things on your I got some brief from my team and then I looked up a little. It's very interesting to see that you have a psychology background, right? I mean, most marketers don't. So how come from psychology you came into the field of marketing? I mean, what kind of interested you in this side, or is there that today in what we see from a digital world and in general in marketing, that psychology is what we need to understand about the consumer, and that's what the new marketing is that. So if you can share a bit about your background and this, that'll be awesome with our audience.
It's a good question. Psychology, as we know, it is all about observing things. So it may be behavior, it may be numbers, it may be anything. So it may be we may observe things not only through the actual behavior. So numbers also give us many things about human behavior, and also I was more interested in observing and understanding things. So even statistics, and even though I am a psychologist, I am a number-driven person. So research was my core area. So I started my career with public health research, mainly from a mental health professional viewpoint. And then I shifted to monitoring and evaluation. And for marketing, it was interesting to me because it is a combination of different, we need combination of different skills to understand marketing. So psychology, understanding human behavior is one aspect, research is another aspect, analytics is another aspect. When all these come together, there will be a more powerful kind of combination. So I preferred this field because of that. Because in other areas, I may not be able to use all the skills. So I thought this would be a right place to me because I can utilize all these skills and come up with more meaningful and relevant insights for the industry.
Awesome. No, I think it's very. I think the new breed of marketers will, at least some of them would definitely be psychologists. I can definitely so glad to have you on the session, and would love to hear what you have to say. Yeah. Sanjay, you've been with the businesses for a long time. I mean, you've been doing in the marketing side for several years, right? I mean, you worked for Fortune 500 companies with Microsoft and so on and so forth. I mean, what is marketing? I mean, how come the marketing thing excited you, and what you see now, which is different from what you have done in the past? So if you can share some insights on that before we kind of dive into the session.
Sure, Nilesh. So, I actually started my career in the technology space, and then moved to marketing, and then if you look at marketing, it's all about people, and with the richness of data which is available today, it's a combination of people and data, right? And that just adds a dimension of transparency to what marketing can actually do and measure, which was just not possible before. And that's extremely exciting, right? Because you can see, how good or bad you actually are because you have the data which talks to you loud and clear about what's happening and what you do. So that's kind of, how I started. So you're right, the roots started in a different place in technology. I was also a Microsoft regional director. I still am an honorary director. And that just helped in a whole way with moving to the side of the table in that sense. So that's kind of very briefly, what and how I got into the side of the space. I know it's 3 o'clock, so I thought I'll keep my intro short.
No, I think no, you're right. I mean, it's a phenomena which we see across the a lot of people are moving into the marketing space, and the excitement which is out there in marketing is tremendous, and so that's that's a place to be in. Everybody's looking at that space, so awesome. I think maybe you can answer this question as you dive into the webinar. But our audience is in, everybody's waiting, so I'll quickly welcome all in the session today. So this session will be recorded. It will be roughly 60 minutes or less, including the Q&A. And our panelists today are Sanjay Shetty, Senior Vice President, Brands and Platforms, Asymmetric, who's our partner, and Dr. Sunita Thampi. She's the Director of Analytics and Insight at Asymmetric. So both of them would be taking us through the session on predictive lead conversion. And so I'll hand it over to Sanjay for taking us further. And the audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat window. We will address them during the session, or we will take up, if we cannot address them, then we'll take up towards the end of the session, where all of us can answer your questions. So now, Sanjay, before you start, I mean, if you can just do a quick share us about how come you came up with this idea for our presentation. I mean, what kind of is there any history behind it, like some customer experience? If you can, I think, start with that, I think that'll be awesome, and then we can kind of go into the session. So over to you.
Thanks, Nilesh. So I'll begin by repeating your question. So the question was in terms of why this presentation specifically, and how do we get onto this particular topic. So one of the common, one of the early challenges most businesses had is how to generate leads, right? And generating leads became, as it started becoming, what I would say more approachable, which you drive via campaign or activation. And I'm going to jump into my deck because my first slide actually talks about that. It became easy to, shoot off a campaign, make sure that you get, a bunch of leads from that. And the challenge which then happened is that the sales team had to, sift through that and work through that. So you literally had the sales team which would attack this lead database which you had, and then try and see, what out of this makes sense. So the challenge was that, hey, if you wanted to generate leads, traditional approach to lead generation being do a campaign, generate a bunch of leads, and the sales teams attacks it, right? And then the challenge which happens when you do that is that this is not really ideal, right? Because now generating leads started getting easier for most people, and even though generating leads got easier, the challenge was that this getting a sales team to engage directly with leads is a challenge. So it's kind of premature, and it's an enormous loss of salesperson time, and increases the lead conversion time if we haven't kind of qualified what the lead, who the lead is exactly. Yeah. There's another problem with that, which is probably inconsistent messaging and information overload, which gets added to this mix. When you have your sales team who's got a certain very clear focus of conversion, rather than nurturing the client in a real sense. So that's the second part of the challenge. The third is actually knowing whom to spend, what time on. So someone may be at the cycle of a lead or at the lead stage where they just want more info. They're curious about what the product is, and that's it. They're not interested in anything more. They're just at that initial, fact-finding kind of stage, and that's they want to know. Yeah. So there's a lack of a structured process for engagement, which is what really is out there. This led to a huge loss of consumer interest or customer interest, and obviously the next thing being lower conversion. So when we saw this happening, and the genesis of this deck is kind of in terms of these requirements that we saw with our clients ourselves, where we're generating tons of leads. Their sales team is kind of overloaded with managing these leads. And what is really required is that you need to nurture these needs, then get into an engagement, right? Then have your sales team actually engage with them. So, I'll give an example that you don't go from hello to will you marry me, right? When we think of engaging with each other, we don't just start right at the go with, hey, would you like to buy this? A smart salesperson actually tries to understand what the customer needs, then goes about actually popping the question, right? So you find someone interesting, you talk to them, figure out what their needs, their interests are, and that's what we do as people, right? So if you think of your customer conversations, you realize that's what you do. You get to know the person, you get to interact with the person, see what their interests and needs are, and then talk about actually, taking on a more serious, taking the relationship to a more serious level of doing, or doing a sale, or getting to, in this case of this example of, asking the person whether they would like to spend the rest of their lives with you. So there's this important step which is needed, and the general, our approach has been in this manner that you might use campaigns to, create a database and get a database to do that lead generation, and you actually then go into figuring out who of these are really important to you and engage with them on a more meaningful way, and then after that get your sales team involved. So doing this is the approach which we shifted to, and that's kind of the reason why this deck itself, which kind of outlines the process which we've been following now, which ultimately results in a much lower cost of acquisition. Yeah. So traditional, it's not that you're taking away from the lead generation which you're doing today. So I'm assuming most of you would have some kind of campaign or activation, or you've got some SEO program, or you're doing some advertising online or remarketing, etc. Or you've got social media channels where you're talking to people, and use that to build up a database of potential people who are interested in you, right? And most offerings actually end here, and that's where the difference lies in the approach that we suggest. Most organizations focus on how do we generate more leads, right? But conversion is typically much lower. So the intelligence which is needed, which says that, hey, this is a more convertible prospect, or this prospect is actually with whom you need to spend more time and give more information, and so on and so forth, is lacking, right? So lacking is the identification of those parameters which will help you to convert the lead in a much more, programmatic way, in a much more systematic way, give meaning to that, conversion process in that sense. And here, nurturing is absolutely essential to increase lead conversion, okay? Now, even though I'm saying nurturing is essential, there is one key step before you get into nurturing, and that I'm going to illustrate with the help of an example. Now, this example is for an actual client of ours, which is in the education space, and the first part of the process of nurturing is to know who you're going to nurture, right? So we actually, when we think of nurturing, we need to segment who we're talking to, right? We need to know who we're talking to and decide how to approach them. So this could be on the basis of sales data, demographics, you may have call center recordings, so primary and secondary data. It could be a bunch of things. And what we actually did for this client of ours, which is the Wellinker Distance Learning Division, which is Wellinker, which is an extremely well-known institute in the education space based out of Mumbai. So what we did is we segmented the audience which we have based on traditional segmentation, obviously, which is full-time courses, certificate courses, distance learning courses, part-time courses, and so on and so forth. And we went a step forward with Sunita's help, and she'll dive into this a little more down the line as well, where we looked at this data slightly differently. We looked at what are the needs of these people. We didn't look at data, and that's what Sunita was talking about earlier as well, right? She understands people, so you need to understand that aspects of people's needs and aspirations, and then there is obviously the segmentation based on what kind of courses they want to do and so on and so forth. So both traditional as well as behavioral profiling based on their needs is what we'll end up doing, right? Now, you do that, and you're doing this for the purpose, right? To understand how each segment of your audience needs to be engaged with, correct? So, if you go back to college and if you remember your interactions with people, whether it was friendships of different kinds or otherwise, you interact with different people in different ways because different people would have different needs and would want different things in life. And that's the same thing here. Human nature is the same, right? Whether it's online or offline. And nurturing with the appropriate messaging is needed, followed by engagement, right? So if I then talk about engagement, what do I really mean, right? And what does it get me? It results in optimal lead conversion, and that engagement in today's digital scenario happens across a variety of channels, right? So I could send an email to someone. I could be, interacting with them, let's say on social media, and across various channels like Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, so on and so forth. I could have be directing all of this, all the people I interact with to a particular microsite maybe, and then I would have different kinds of material out there which they would access, right? So it could be presentations, it could be webinars, something like this itself, right? So if, for instance, you came to this webinar via an email which you got, which took you to a landing page which you registered, and then on the day of the webinar you're actually attending it, right? So we've actually used the lead nurturing process ourselves out here. Now, you do a bunch of things, right? You need to decide how you're going to communicate. You need to ensure that it's consistent with your brand and relevant, obviously, to your target audience, right? Thereby delivering a consistent message and going towards, when I'm using nurturing, understand the reason for nurturing is to build that relationship, right? The question which would then arise in your mind is that, hey, have I really made an impact, right? You need to question and you need to understand what is happening with all these interactions which a customer is doing across all of these channels, right? So someone may come open your email. Someone may, from that email go to your microsite. Someone may interact on Facebook and from there come to your microsite. So people will have different paths in which they traverse to get to the information which you want. And you, by the course of this nurturing, would need to actually evaluate and measure that impact and try and understand who is more important, where, and based on that, obviously then ask the sales team to, interact. So this part of nurturing, and this is where LeadSquared, the software and the company which is bringing this presentation to you shines, right? Because it helps you map customer interest by tracking their digital activity. So let's say, for instance, if I was sitting in front of you, I would know right now how you're finding the presentation interesting, whether you have a question or not. So, Nilesh is obviously going to tell us about the questions which come and so on. But online, I really don't know what's happening. But I could possibly know when you opened my email, right? Or clicked a particular link. And each of those activities adds in our system to the score which is given to you. So the score on the topmost part of the screen which you see, which shows the number 2 right now. And then my interactions on social media, a link I click, the site which I come, the pages I visit on the site, all of that goes to map out the digital footprint of that potential lead which you have, right? So he downloads a PDF or a study material, or if she, goes and attends this webinar, right? Just like we're doing here. So each time the score which is on the top right, on the top of the screen right now, is what gets updated and gives me a little more insight in terms of what is the interest level of the person who is interacting with me across all the information and content which I have across the various channels across which they're spread out. So I get a literally digital map of the person, and I'm able to understand what and where their interest lies, and what they're really interested in. This helps in qualifying the leads to a certain extent. Okay? And the next question, which obviously one has to answer, is will they convert, right? After knowing about all of this information, one still needs to dive in a little more and understand, will these people really convert? And that's where, and that's the reason why we have data scientists on our team. That's why we have Sunita, who helps us with the next part, which comes after monitoring, or actually comes before we start on this process of monitoring what a customer does with us across our properties online. So if you try to identify convertibility, right, the combination of your brand messaging, your campaign, and your product and service, that attracts a particular kind of target audience to you, right? And that target audience might share a bunch of interesting, characteristics. It could be in terms of their age, their profession, their reason for enrolling, right? In our case, when we look at the education, industry, in which Sunita will also give a case study about, we also look at, what is the income of the person who is applying to this course. So based on all of this, we kind of create what is called a conversion index, right? Now this conversion index is a combination of information which I described on the previous slide, which is about the activity which a person does online, opens an email, visits a site, clicks on a link, so on and so forth, and then based on the demographics of that person. So how do we develop a conversion index? I'm going to lead this now with Sunita, who will talk about a case study of what we've done with Wellington itself on how to create a conversion index which helps identify those characteristics which lead to better lead conversion.
Thank you, Sanjay, and good afternoon, everybody. So Sanjay has already explained about the rationale, broad methodology, and business implications about the lead conversion index. So I will be talking specifically about a case study on how we have resolved the lead conversion challenge of one of our clients from Management Education. Sanjay has already mentioned about Wellington Institute of Management, Mumbai. Many of you must be from Mumbai, and you must be aware about this esteemed institute. Asymmetric is providing integrated digital brand solutions for their postgraduate diploma course through distance learning mode. Since our association from 2010, they're completely focusing digital media for lead generation, and LeadSquared is the implementation platform for lead capture and nurturing. So through all these efforts we have taken during the last couple of years, lead generation has improved substantially, and specifically speaking, last academic year it has increased about 20%. Okay, now the problem is, since sufficient number of leads are getting generated, the major challenge in front of the client was how to handle these increased leads optimally. So how to improve the relevance of leads? It has to start from generating relevant leads, and how to nurture them effectively and ultimately, and finally we have to know that how to come up with a sustainable system for lead conversion. So Asymmetric has proposed developing a lead conversion index which can predict the actual convertibility of course prospects. The logic was, once we predict the behavior of prospects in favor of the brand, then we can develop more efficient lead nurturing programs and ensure better conversion. For this purpose, we wanted to identify all factors which may affect the conversion in favor of the course. So broadly, we consider two sets of factors. So their profile related factors as well as their actions based factors. Profile was analyzed from the historic data which was collected at different points of contact and time from the brand prospects, like their age, their education, occupation, course selection preferences, their other likes, interests, even attitudes. All these factors were considered under understanding their profile. So the activity was analyzed based on the real-time actions they have taken mainly in the digital space. Other offline actions are also considered, like whether they have opened an email, they responded to an email, whether they sent a negative response to that, or called directly to the call center, visited website, blogs, all these possible actions were taken into account. Then after gathering and cleaning all the relevant data, we considered various ways of establishing the conversion potential. Generally, most of the predictability models we know are based on the statistical logic. So here we considered various other logical aspects as well. Like we realized that generating maximum number of leads may not be the only criteria for assessing the potential. For example, currently maximum leads must be generating from a particular group. So that may not be the only criteria for giving a high weightage to that factor. So we considered other factors like is that factor is performing consistently, is the volume is sufficient enough to establish a relationship, or how much time they are taking, like that. Various other factors are also considered. And after considering all these parameters, we came up with a final score and validated the scores with the data generated during the next 2 quarters. So once a lead enters into the LeadSquared system, he or she will be assigned a profile score. Call center staff does not have to interpret that score. So it will be highlighted as high, medium, or low in terms of their convertibility. Also, the leads start engaging digitally for once they start doing any actions, another activity score will get assigned. Hence, the call center dashboard contains a profile score as well as an activity score. And call center people, based on these 2 scores, call center people can take appropriate actions. Based on combinations of these 2 scores, we came up with 9 segments of prospects in terms of convertibility. Like high profile, high activity would be one group, high profile, medium activity would be another group. Like that, 9 combinations of 9 segments of prospects are based. These 9 customized strategies were also developed for nurturing these leads, because the way we approach each of these leads could be very different. So high profile, high activity would be reached immediately and their conversion potential is very high. Compared to low profile and low activity group, they may take more time to convert. So we have to reach out to the high activity, high profile group immediately. So 9 customized strategies were also developed for nurturing these leads. What should be the communication? What should be the span of time within which a prospect should be reached? What should be the combination of actions which should be taken for converting them? What are the necessary training or orientation required for the call center staff as well as to the marketing team? And ultimately how to track the performance. All these things were taken care of after the initial index development phase. For example, the actions I mentioned, the number of emails which should be sent, or the number of calls we have to make, and what should be the content of all these mails, all these things were taken care of after the initial index development phase. There are many benefits to call center staff as well as marketing team while using this index. So call center staff are able to approach a lead with a better understanding about their convertibility. Otherwise, they were approaching them as a homogeneous group. Uniform efforts were taken for everyone. Now they can take customized nurturing actions for each of these groups. Also, it helps to prioritize their daily lead calls and follow-ups. Hence, time and other resources can be utilized optimally. So if they have 100 leads for a day to cover, so they can prioritize people from high profile and high activity group. They can reach out to them first, and they can take time to reach to low profile and low activity group, and they can even estimate the time they want to spend with each of these groups. Program team is able to come up with relevant, regular corrective action based on better understanding about the behavior and subsequent performance of leads. Also, at the long run, it helps to develop customized engagement and conversion strategies for the program. I may conclude that a better system for understanding the actions and behavior of your prospects definitely will help to nurture and convert them optimally. It saves time, money, other resources, and ultimately improves return of investment. Thank you. Any questions and comments are welcome.
We'll anyways take questions at the end. Just one thing which I want to add here is that this view, which is of the profile and what he is doing online, this is based on historical, the demographic information, and this is literally real time, right? So while LeadSquared, I can know exactly what a person is doing, and his activity score keeps getting updated, and this is based on the historical data, right? Now this system is not static, okay? As what we found is, even in our initial phase of putting this in place, we begin to realize that there are certain parameters which would need to be changed. So the system is a living system. It's not something which is created today and then end of story, right? Because people are different. People change, their needs change, the kind of people who are interested in a particular product or service might change over time. So the system is cognizant of that, and it can be tweaked to handle that. So the conversion index basically helps us to be relevant as the products and as the offerings change as well. So that's the broad process and logic of the conversion index. We've just barely scratched the surface of it in terms of the various elements which need to be put in place to get this running. And obviously LeadSquared is the primary engine on top of which we built our system. So I'm going to move on to the last part, and hopefully we spend some time as I understood from Nilesh, there are questions which came in for the seminar before the seminar even started. So we thought there might be a couple of questions from you all. Let me just summarize what we've talked about, right? So lead generation is standard, which everybody does this, right? And you need to move ahead a step forward from that. You need to improve the process to reduce the load and not create overload on the system in terms of adding new resources at the call center or new salesperson. And the way to do that is actually nurture the leads. Obviously, the first step in that being segmenting to understand who are the people who are your ideal prospects, and then putting in place a lead conversion index, which will actually help you to generate better and more effective sales. So that's the basic idea, and there's tons of benefits when one does this, right? So not just this isn't anymore about perceived value. Yeah, it's no more about perceived value. It's actual ROI, because it tells you what the return is going to be. It's going to directly impact and lower the cost of acquisition as well as conversion. And you have real-time insight into what and where interests lie of your customers, and you're able to take corrective action, right across. So it helps you optimize the spends which you have across channels, which you might be engaging with your clients. And this is something which I'm sure a whole lot of you might have already seen and must be aware. This is a research paper which basically talks about marketers and productivity by level of automation. And there's just a whole lot of difference in people who are spending in terms of actually putting in place a system which helps in identifying and automating this to a great extent. So companies that get lead scoring right have, that's the research by the Aberdeen Group, which states that 192% higher average lead qualification rate. And it's not data by us. but it's research which is consistently available, online, which talks about how effective this is. So this has been our experience, and we're finding that putting this in place is something which goes beyond and fits in very well with, you might have an agency which does XYZ work, and we found that putting in place a conversion index and qualifying your leads leads to much more benefits and extreme cost reduction as well. Obviously, each organization is going to find that the impact of this is going to be different in each organization, which is absolutely right. And we're happy to answer any questions which you might have about this, either right now online itself or even offline as well. So I'll just leave this on the screen. So that's how we look, by the way. That's me and that's Sunita. Yeah, that's how we look. And well, we won't bite even if you send us and ask us questions later on as well, if you need to. Nilesh, we're kind of done, and I guess I'm hoping we're done bang on, in time.
Yeah,
so that
no, I think first you guys look great. So that's a good one, and I think we've finished it. It was a great presentation. I do have a couple of questions before I get the tab open of the questions coming in. I think there's a good interest. There's one question that's kind of related. How do so if you can describe by an example, how would somebody in a typical situation for a particular business take the assign the grade or the profile which you have identified as high, medium, and low for their own business? Like, so for example, if you give an example of how you did that for a customer, and then somebody else, how can they learn and do it in their own business? So I think if you can throw some light on that, that'll be very useful.
Yeah, so I'll repeat the question. The question basically, I hope I've understood the question. The question was, how do you assign the value of, a value to a prospect as being of high interest in terms of, and how do you do it in your own business? That's the question, right? So
yes.
If you notice, there were two things to this. Okay, to answer this question, I'll start off, and then Sunita can probably add a line more. So when you think of assigning a value to identify the conversion potential of a particular prospect, there are two aspects to it. The first aspect is you're going to be able to determine parameters based on your historical data, which is going to help a lot, because your historical data tells you that with the messaging which you've had, with the kind of products you've had, that combination of the products or services, messaging, yeah, that would have gone to attract literally a certain kind of TG, right? A certain kind of prospect would have actually found that combination interesting. And that data you already have in your database, right? Most organizations have data, many years worth of data, which talks about what kind of customers they've had in the past, what's the profile of these people, and so on. So demographic information is going to tell you that. There's also a time factor in that. So how much time does a certain kind of lead take to convert? So our data scientists and people, the team which we have, actually sifts through all of this data. So they actually take all of this data, they analyze it to try and understand what are the patterns in the data which is there. Okay? Analysis of that tells them what is the most highly convertible kind of customer, right? That's one aspect. Now all of this, so you'd need to, to answer the question, you'd need to do that with your data. You need to do that, and the second thing which you need to do is if you have a system like LeadSquared in place, right? So whether it is that email which you've sent, which emails have been opened a lot, right? open rates, which pages on your website are visited the most frequently, which landing pages are working well for you, right? So whether it's email, whether it's landing pages, now it's a combination of demographic, historic data, as well as current actions online. That combination is going to help you understand your customer better, right? So these two sets of data will basically help you identify convertibility. So let me just go to a particular slide wherein we reference that. Let me go and see if I can jump straight to that slide. I'm going to jump to a slide which talks to this specific question in slightly more detail. And this is the slide, which you will see now in front of you. So the combination of a certain kind of campaign, messaging, product, service, right? The characteristics, demographics, and interests of your customers, and obviously the activity which they do online. That will help you, the combination of these will help you assign a value to what kind of customers are more highly likely to convert or are, you know, in the medium range or are in the low range. Sunita, you want to add something to that?
Yes, thanks, Sanjay. Manish, specific to this question, so our history as well as our present will tell more about our behavior. So history, already people who are interested in this institute's course, so that will give a fair idea about the prospects. So from which age group they are converting, from which location they are coming, what is their occupation, all those things, along with other behavioral aspects like what are their course selection criteria, whether this particular product is meeting their expectations, and what are their needs. Are they looking for loans or financial assistance or convenience and flexibility in time? Considering all these factors, then we do the statistical analysis as well as other logical aspects like one particular factor, how much influence a particular factor has on convertibility. So we considered all these factors and then assign high, medium and low score. At the same time, there are ongoing activities like a person who visits website, and if a person is calling directly to the call center may have a high possibility than a person who is inactive in a digital or offline space. So all these are variables, all these factors were taken into consideration, and we ensured to identify the validity of all the statistical things are also taken care of behind it.
So it's not a simple exercise, right? It's simple from the perspective that, hey, you need to analyze the past historical data, right? But it's a rigorous exercise to first clean the data, get it in a format where it can be analyzed, then analyze it, then develop a model which says that these kind of customers are more likely to convert, then apply that back again and see if that model actually is working, put it in place real time, and that's the true test of that conversion or convertibility. So it's a bunch of things which are needed, and we've seen that we've done this in the past with other kinds of clients as well in different industries, and right now the examples which we are sharing are primarily in the education space. That there is a bit of tweaking which is needed. There's a considerable bit of tweaking which is needed, but before that there's this whole exercise analyzing the data. So I hope we've been able to give you, though a slightly long, but a more clearer explanation of what all is involved before you just, you just can't go and assign a high low or a high low or a low score to a particular kind of profile. You actually need to study that data, and typically, you'll end up studying almost 2 years of data, plus 2 years of data, which is needed.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yes, I agree with you. I think what is important for marketers to realize and understand is that the old style of marketing, of just doing activities, is not going to give them the results they seek in today's with today's in environment. So they need to be savvy. They need to invest time in looking at the past data and making sense out of it. So I mean, things like this, right? I mean, if you go to, I really boil down to my simple way of making it understand. From a sales standpoint, if you go to a shop, right, and the shopkeeper has been selling, let's say, some kind of clothes for let's say, years, maybe decades, that person can quickly judge when a person walks in. He knows that whether this guy is going to buy or not. They have a very good sense of understanding the customer. The same sense you need to build in marketing by looking at the data, because you cannot look at the person. You cannot talk to the person. You can only look at their past data and their activities. So that is what is very important, from a marketing standpoint, that it is not only doing marketing activities which is going to make marketers differentiate them in front of their customers, but actually going back and looking at the data and making sense out of it is where the value is for the business and for the marketing dollars which you spend. So a couple other questions here. I think there were a lot of them which were kind of related, so I'll pick few and then we'll. So I think there's one question from Yashad. Basically it's a similar question, but in a different twist. So he's saying, how are the leads originally segmented before they're quantified? Do the leads get a call before getting quantification, or there is an email, or there is some kind of a sign-up form? So it's a question where basically I believe maybe he's trying to understand how does one actually start doing the segmentation. Like, is there any rule of thumb we have which can make people easy? Because simple rules help people in actually moving forward with any of the project, and understanding the customer. So any thoughts you can share on that?
So here's a simple idea for that collect as much data as you can. Okay, in the initial phase of this process, you would go about capturing every aspect of your profile's information which is possible. So we've gone to the extent, so for instance, where do the leads data come in, right? So typically your lead data is coming in via a form which they have filled online. I'm just giving one particular instance, right? And when you get that data, typically most people's forms end at a simple first page form, right? So you click, you submit, and you get a thank you page. The second page actually is a brilliant place to capture secondary data about the customer, right? So for instance, your first page might just capture simple information in terms of first name, an email ID, and maybe a telephone number, right? And the second page, which he hits upon after he clicks on submit, asks him about maybe his profession, his education, his motivation, or the interest which he has in your product or service, right? And so that's what I would give as the simplest piece of advice in terms of collating data. In the first stage, go about collating as much data as you can. This simple step will help you literally double the qualitative information which you can gather about a customer. And unfortunately, the part after that is not simple. The part after that actually involves the work of a data expert, not just a data expert, I would actually say a data scientist, who has to go through that data, who has to analyze it, and understand what the motivations have been, or understand and interpret that data to figure out what the motivations are of the people who are, who are filling in that data. You then need to go back to your historical data and compare and see, so this is one way, right? The second way is you could actually just look at your past data, right? Analyze just that, figure out what are the patterns which are repeating. So is it that you're getting, let's say, more people from the financial space, or let's say, HR professionals, or let's say a certain kind of professional who's interested in your courses? Or is it, from a certain localized area? It could be the pattern which might emerge would be different, right? So if, let's say, for instance, this in the case of the Educational Institute as an example, you'd notice maybe that people from in and around the area constitute 80% of the, of the audience. So people who get into your system from, let's say, a city outside may not be as high in your in terms of the score which you assign to them. So it is going to be different, but these are just some ideas which I'm sharing with you, which will help you quantify and decide on the parameters on which you will assign a higher score or a lower score. I hope that helps. We'd obviously get engaged in a more deeper, meaningful way for me to get to specifics as to how we could do that, because we've noticed that across different clients, the parameters are varying.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense. I think probably it answers the second question. There's another question from a gentleman, Amit. He's asking, do you build a conversion index for every customer? Like, is it a different piece of information, an index for every client? I think my answer is yes, but I think if you can elaborate on that so that he can.
Yeah, Sunita would just like to answer that as well. I've already answered one part of it. She'll probably answer it with a different perspective.
Yes. Nilesh, this, as Sanjay mentioned, if you can collect as much as data, then the conversion index will be more potential, because during every touch point, if you can generate, when we run campaigns or in the lead registration forms or during call center conversations, if you can collect more data, then it will be more robust. Another thing is, ideally, if we develop an index, so we can include some most potential parameters in the index. But for each client, data collection methods will be different. The kind of variables they are collecting will be different. So then it should be custom. Even product is also different. When location specific, there will be different influencing factors. Well, different courses also may have different kind of influences. So considering all these factors, a customized kind of index for each client would be the most ideal one. May I answer?
Yes. I think it is. It basically addresses, because ultimately every customer has a different demographic and a type of customer they are selling to. So it definitely makes sense that they need to have a different.
One more thing, even index is also not a stagnant kind of thing. It is also dynamic. Depends on the market scenarios and all, it may change. So it during a considerable time period, it may be useful, but an ongoing kind of revision may also require for a particular client.
In fact, this slide which you see on the screen, right? Each typically, most organizations will have a specific kind of product or service, right? They will have some kind of unique messaging which is there along with it. And, obviously some kind of campaign which ties up all of this and attracts a certain kind of audience. So if you look at, just these three parameters itself, you can imagine the combination which is possible, right? Just these three itself would yield a different, or would attract a different kind of target audience itself, right? Now, you might have certain things which are common, right? We're all people, we're all individuals. So let's say demographics, reasons for enrollment, these fields would be there, but the data in those fields would be different, and that would drive the index in a different way. So I hope that answers the queries completely. And
it does.
Almost, I don't know if Nilesh should be able to help me here, but we're just 4 minutes off the scheduled time, I think. So we'd be happy even if you collate extra questions and mail us, and we could answer that as well. So let me know. I mean, you tell us when you want to get to that, when you get to that stage.
Yes. I think I think that's there's one more piece of question which is out there which I'll address, and it's basically a question I know about. There was a point which you had in the webinar about lead generation getting easier. I think there was one person at least few people on the in the audience who were challenging that, saying it's difficult for them. So I think so lead generation, we've talked about that in different other webinars in the past. So you're welcome to anybody who wants to see our other past webinars can definitely look at that. And I think there was one other stat I would like to quote is that
on a lighter note, I think all of us would be able to help them in the lead generation process for I'm not saying, so it's there's the observation is correct that it's not that we're not trying to belittle or say that lead generation is not is not important. It is definitely extremely important. It's a process. It involves a number of moving components as well. But this particular webinar, we're addressing a different challenge. Which actually even helps in improve lead generation also, right? It helps in improve lead relevance specifically. So I mean we're talking about a different problem, but I understand where they're coming from and appreciate them pointing that out as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair question, and the thing is, I mean, lead generation requires effort, and anybody who's putting effort, and it requires money. If you don't have money, if you don't want to put effort, then lead generation is not going to be easy. So I think it's a question. And the other thing which are roughly stats which I've seen is that 92% of the marketing dollar is getting spent on lead generation, and only 1% goes on actually nurturing the lead. So that's the opportunity right there for marketers to look at and reallocate some of the budgets from lead generation to nurturing if they don't have additional budget, or if they can pull some more money, they should put that in lead nurturing because lead generation is getting enough of it generally. So that being said, I think we're coming close to our session. So I really want to thank Sanjay and Sunita for coming on the session and sharing this wonderful presentation. It was awesome. I enjoyed the session. I learned a few new things, and it was a very participative session. The audience was asking questions. There were several other questions which you could answer, which you could not answer because of the lack of time today. So thank you all, and you have any final points to say, Sanjay, before we close?
I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been here, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Answering the queries they've had, and we're more than happy if there are people who have more questions, and we'd be happy to. So this email ID, which is connect@asymmetric.net, we'll be happy to answer their queries out there. And please, or you can, even obviously Nilesh, they could send it to you, and we'd be happy to answer them as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. It's a pleasant Friday, so and you guys all need to be sober on Friday evening. So you all have a good one, and we'll see you next time in the next 2 weeks. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
You too. Bye.